7:30 p.m., a lonely stretch of grass behind an empty warehouse in an industrial zone. The lights from passing trucks cast eerie shadows on the concrete walls. That's when a truck driver makes a grim discovery. A pregnant woman, barely conscious, blood soaking through her shirt, struggling for every breath. Not far away, a man lies motionless, his body twisted at an unnatural angle. Two people, once considered their close friends, have vanished into thin air. How did a gathering among friends spiral into chaos and bloodshed? Why would anyone target an expectant mother, her fiancé, and walk away as if nothing had happened? On the surface, it looks like a simple case of violence, maybe a deal gone wrong or a robbery that turned deadly. But as investigators would soon learn, the truth is far stranger and the motives far darker than anyone imagined. In the hours that followed, police would cordon off the scene, combing the grass for shell casings, footprints, anything that might explain the violence. Word began to spread. The names involved weren't just ordinary citizens. Behind these broken lives were connections to luxury, business, and a world that most people only glimpse through social media. As the city settled into another winter night, two questions lingered in the air. Who wanted these two dead, and where were the suspects now? This is the story of Tyler Pratt, Jordan Romano, and the influencer couple, Lucy Lee and Oliver Karafa. A story that begins with blood on the ground and secrets hiding in plain sight. But to understand how things unraveled so catastrophically, we have to go back to a world of privilege, pressure, and promises that were never meant to be kept. To truly understand this tragedy, we need to step back to the families whose lives would become intertwined in the worst way. The Lee family is no stranger to ambition. Three sisters, Lucy, Caitlin, and Jane, born into privilege but raised under constant pressure. Their mother, Hong Wei Winnie Lee, is a prominent businesswoman known throughout Toronto's elite circles, running Resbound International with a reputation for success and discipline. For the Lee triplets, excellence was never a choice. It was a requirement. Yet, beneath the expectations, Lucy longed for something different. Freedom, excitement, a taste of the world outside her mother's shadow. Lucy's answer was social media. Together with her sisters, she built an influencer brand. Stylish, aspirational, glamorous. Their online presence brought not only attention, but money. Paid promotions, luxury trips, an enviable lifestyle, everything seemed perfect, at least on the surface. But perfection is a mask. And sometimes, masks slip. Enter Oliver Karafa. Born in Slovakia in 1993, his past was already stained by tragedy. A reckless night, a drunk driving crash, a friend lost forever. For that, Oliver served 5 years in prison, emerging with what some described as an unusual sense of entitlement. In 2019, he reconnected with Lucy, and sparks flew fast. Within months, they moved in together, chasing dreams from one city to the next. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck, their love story took a strange turn. A rushed Zoom wedding at the airport, just so they could escape lockdown and fly to Europe. On the other side of this tangled web was Tyler Pratt. Once a successful businessman, Tyler's history wasn't spotless. He'd been linked to large-scale dealings in illegal substances, but claimed to have turned his life around. By 2021, Tyler was engaged to Jordan Romano, a 25-year-old devoted to her family and excited for a future that was never meant to be. It seemed like fate brought these lives together. But beneath the gloss of wealth and Instagram filters, tensions were brewing, and in just a few short months, everything would come crashing down. On the outside, Their world glittered with the promise of easy success. Flashy cars, international flights, bank accounts overflowing with millions. But look closer, and the cracks begin to show. Oliver Karafa, always the salesman, began to chase new opportunities during the COVID-19 pandemic. He pitched Tyler Pratt a dream, investing in the booming personal protective equipment, PPE business. At first, the numbers looked good. Tyler was convinced to hand over $170,000. Then, another $470,000, all without a formal contract. Oliver wasn't shy about flaunting his supposed wealth. Screenshots of European bank accounts showed a staggering $12 million. But was any of it real? Behind closed doors, doubts began to fester. There were whispers of fraud. Lucy, always resourceful, wrote a $1.5 million check, borrowing her mother's account to buy time, a check that would never be cashed. Then came the insurance scheme. $1.5 million channeled through her mother's company, supposedly a tax-free transfer. But in reality, it was just another delay, another story to keep Tyler at bay. As weeks turned to months, Tyler's patience wore thin. February 2021 brought a final ultimatum. Tyler demanded that the money be returned by March 1st. For Lucy and Oliver, the walls were closing in. Financial pressure mounted. Old secrets threatened to resurface. What would happen if Tyler went to the police, or worse, to the media? It was here, at this boiling point, that the couple made their fateful choice. Underneath the polished exterior, fear and desperation were taking control. Friends became adversaries. Promises shattered. The influencer fantasy was on the verge of collapse, and with each passing day, the threat of exposure became unbearable. Did Tyler really know the people he was dealing with? If the whole thing was just a scam, why keep up the charade for so long? And when a line is crossed, is there ever a way back? The answers would come soon, but at a cost no one could have imagined. February 28th, 2021. In the lead-up to that fateful night, careful preparations were underway. Each move calculated, each detail planned to perfection. It began with a purchase. A white Audi Q5, registered under someone else's name. Lucy Lee, needing a discreet way to communicate, borrowed a friend's SIM card to send the final message, an invitation to Tyler and Jordan, promising a meeting to discuss a legal cannabis grow-op. Even in her movements, Lucy was methodical. She disguised herself with a bright wig, masking her identity for what was to come. The meeting was set at the back lot of a deserted warehouse. Lucy joined Jordan Romano in the Range Rover, chatting and stalling for time. Tyler Pratt, ever the businessman, waited nearby with Oliver. But beneath the small talk and nervous laughter, the atmosphere was tense. Did anyone sense what was about to unfold? Suddenly, violence erupted. Oliver drew a gun. The first two shots missed Jordan, but the third struck her in the left side of her chest. Panic. Tyler tried to intervene, but Oliver turned the gun on him, firing repeatedly until Tyler collapsed, lifeless, in the dirt. In a flash, years of friendship and trust disintegrated, replaced by fear and betrayal. But the plan didn't end with the trigger being pulled. Lucy and Oliver dragged Jordan from the vehicle, leaving her to bleed out. They made off in the Range Rover, stripping it for parts before abandoning it. Not satisfied, they doubled back for the Audi, removing evidence and destroying traces of their escape. That night, as the news broke about the shooting, Lucy and Oliver sat glued to the television, horrified to learn that Jordan had survived the attack and undergone emergency surgery. Their plan, so meticulously orchestrated, had failed. With daylight came desperation. The couple wasted no time, fleeing Canada before sunrise. They left behind a crime scene that would haunt investigators, a shattered family, and a city on edge. In just a few hours, a story that began with business deals and borrowed trust had turned into a nightmare, and the hunt for answers was only just beginning. The investigation began in chaos, with a frantic call from the truck driver at 7:30 p.m. Paramedics raced to the scene, struggling to save Jordan Romano's life. She was rushed into surgery, her chances uncertain. 3 days later, against the odds, Jordan emerged from her coma. Her statement would prove vital. Police quickly pieced together the early timeline. Jordan, the only surviving witness, described the ambush, how a meeting about a business deal had become a nightmare, and how the suspects, once trusted friends, had vanished without a trace. But why would Lucy Lee and Oliver Karafa turn on Tyler Pratt and his fiancée? Was this personal or something more calculated? Detectives turned to technology. By tracing cell tower pings, they identified a burner SIM card used to set up the meeting, a number linked back to a friend of Lucy's. CCTV cameras captured grainy images of the couple leaving their apartment, heading for the airport in the hours after the crime. Forensic teams scoured the scene and the abandoned vehicles. They found a blonde wig, stained with makeup and blood, matching Lucy's disguise. Oliver's fingerprints, Lucy's bloodied clothes, keys to the Audi. Each piece of evidence told a story of premeditation and desperation. Meanwhile, investigators looked into the financial transactions. They uncovered the fake check, the insurance plot, and a web of messages between Lucy and Oliver. Messages partly coded, but not enough to hide the truth. The pattern was clear. This was no crime of passion, but a scheme gone fatally wrong. Police ruled out other suspects. Tyler's business rivals had alibis. No evidence pointed to a random act or an external hit. All signs led back to Lucy and Oliver. Still, the couple was already gone. Authorities issued international warrants, racing against time. With digital footprints and forensic evidence piling up, the walls were closing in. But could they catch the suspects before they disappeared for good? The days after the attack saw a manhunt cross borders and continents. While investigators in Canada pieced together the forensic puzzle, Lucy Lee and Oliver Karafa were already thousands of miles away, moving swiftly through Europe in a bid to outrun justice. Their first stop, Prague, in the Czech Republic. From there, they slipped into Slovakia, Oliver's homeland, seeking refuge with his family. But hiding wasn't easy. Police surveillance ramped up, and word spread quickly. Oliver's father, determined to protect his son, reportedly spent over 250,000 euros on safe houses, forged documents, and a network of contacts to keep the couple hidden. For a while it worked. But as pressure mounted, Lucy and Oliver kept moving, heading to Budapest, Hungary. During this time, their attitudes revealed the cracks in their partnership. Lucy, used to luxury, chafed at the reality of life on the run. She famously complained that prison was nothing like a five-star hotel, and even grumbled about flying economy class. Behind the bravado, it was clear that fear and regret were taking hold. She began hinting to authorities about wanting to return to Canada, hoping for a better deal. Oliver, for his part, kept his silence and leaned on his network for protection. But the net was closing fast. 2 months after the crime, Hungarian police, working closely with Canadian authorities, tracked down the fugitives and arrested them without incident. The flight was over. Extradition began. Back in Canada, Lucy remained silent, following her lawyer's advice while Oliver showed no sign of cooperation. Their story had become international news, a cautionary tale about greed, betrayal, and the limits of escape. The turning point was complete. What began as a cold, calculated plan had spiraled into panic, betrayal, and the end of the road for two would-be influencers who thought they could outsmart the law. But what would happen when justice finally caught up? With the suspects back on Canadian soil, the wheels of justice began to turn. The case gripped the nation, not just for the brutality of the crime, but for the twisted glamour of those involved. The influencer, the fallen entrepreneur, the shattered families, all converged in the courtroom. Bail was set at an eye-watering $2.7 million. Lucy, desperate for freedom, violated her release conditions almost immediately and was sent back to jail. Oliver, considered an even greater flight risk, was denied bail altogether and spent nearly 2 years behind bars awaiting trial. The trial finally opened in April 2024. Courtrooms filled with media, friends, and family, each seeking answers, each carrying scars. Lucy took the stand, painting herself as another victim, manipulated by a domineering husband. She claimed she had no choice, that Oliver masterminded everything, that her role was that of a bystander trapped in a nightmare. Yet her story crumbled under cross-examination. Not a single member of her own family would support her alibi. The jury, watching her carefully, saw through the facade. Oliver, for his part, refused to testify. He stared forward, impassive, as witness after witness detailed the months of lies, the financial traps, the calculated planning. The forensic evidence was damning. The disguise, the burner phones, the flight, the trail of digital and physical clues leading straight to their door. The prosecution left nothing to chance. The motive was clear: mounting debts, desperation, and the fatal belief that violence could erase the consequences of greed. When the jury returned its verdict, there was no shock in the room. Both Lucy Lee and Oliver Karafa were found guilty. The sentence: life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. As the courtroom emptied, a heavy silence lingered. Justice had been served, but the wounds remained. For the families of Tyler Pratt and Jordan Romano, closure would prove elusive. For the public, the case was a stark warning that beneath the shimmer of wealth and influence, darker forces can still take hold. In the aftermath, the echoes of violence stretched far beyond the courtroom. Jordan Romano survived her physical wounds, but the cost was immeasurable. She had lost her fiancé, Tyler Pratt, the future they'd dreamed of together, and the child they were expecting. For Jordan and her family, grief became a constant companion, a reminder that some losses can never be repaired. The families of Tyler Pratt and Jordan Romano faced their own long road of healing. Each day brought memories of happier times and the pain of what might have been. The trial may have ended with a verdict, but for those left behind, the sentence of loss is a life sentence of its own. Meanwhile, the Lee family's reputation suffered a blow from which it might never fully recover. The glamour of social media, the image of a perfect life, was revealed for what it was: a fragile illusion. Lucy Lee's story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of ambition untethered from conscience, and about the way that greed, pressure, and the pursuit of status can drive even the most privileged into darkness. For Oliver Karafa, the road ended in a prison cell, far from the world of fast cars and easy money he once chased. The plan that was meant to solve all his problems only multiplied them, leaving devastation in its wake. This case stands as a chilling reminder. Money cannot buy the truth, nor can it erase the consequences of one's actions. No matter how carefully a lie is constructed, no amount of privilege, planning, or influence can shield someone from justice forever. Digital trails, surveillance cameras, and the relentless work of investigators broke through the web of deceit, proving that even those who cross borders cannot escape the reach of the law. In the end, the tragedy of Tyler Pratt, Jordan Romano, Lucy Lee, and Oliver Karafa is more than a tale of crime. It's a lesson about the choices we make, the people we trust, and the price paid when ambition overshadows humanity. In the quiet aftermath of one of Canada's most chilling modern crimes, the lessons linger. What began as a web of business, glamour, and trust ended in bloodshed, heartbreak, and the slow work of justice. Tyler Pratt's family mourns a father and partner lost. Jordan Romano moves forward, forever changed. Lucy Lee and Oliver Karafa, once celebrated for their beauty and boldness, now serve out their sentences, their futures traded for a desperate grab at money and freedom. This case reminds us, beneath the glossy surface of wealth and influence, the truth always finds its way to the light. No matter how far you run or how carefully you plan, justice is patient. The data never lies. The cameras never blink. As we close the file on this story, the message is clear. Greed can turn even the brightest promise into tragedy, and no one is truly above the law. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life mysteries and investigations. Every week, we shine a light on the world's most puzzling crimes, because some questions still demand answers.